Thank you for the host. Smash. Good morning, Evie. You play all Luti matches in a shirt and tie? Well, you should be showing up to your Luti matches in a shirt and tie. But during the matches, you should put your team jersey on. Hello, Tiger. Tigray. Hello, Kelp of Pure Divinity. Hey, PD's popping off. And Luti. I think. Let me check. Two 2-0, 5-3 Indigo, 5-1 Licensed to Krill, who beat Salt to Pepper, Mocha, then a Salt to Pepper. Hey, PD's going to the playoffs. How about that? Unless they don't. PD, a team that full disclosure, if you guys don't pop off in that midway tournament number 1, you might not be in Div 2 right now. So looks like we did the right thing there. Hello, Takora. The camera looks really fuzzy. Or is that just me? Okay, it's cleared up now. Maybe I'll just... You like the scruff? Thank you. I like it. I like it too. It's focus is better now. Okay, yeah. It looked really weird. Hello, Laya QT. Your week 1 and week 3 opponents use their reschedule. So how does that work? That means you have to play 2 matches in 1 week at some point, right? And if the other team used their reschedule, you're screwed for no fault to yourself. Never accept a reschedule unless it's like an absolute last thing to do. Or unless you're really cool with the other team and you have bye weeks because there's only 4 teams in your group or something. Hello, Sir Skit. Excuse me. My scruff brings out my eyes, though. I don't know about that. You just never noticed that I had these eyeballs on my head until I let my face go for a couple of weeks. Hey, does he have eyes like every other human? Or most other humans, I guess. course, I had to dress up for the 50th episode. I like wearing a suit and tie for the Popcast every now and then. I had like 5 episodes in a row where I wore a hat. I try to balance off the episodes where I wear a hat and where I don't. I don't want you guys to think I'm self-conscious about my head or something. 4 episodes in a row wearing a hat. Before that, we did 8 in a row without wearing a hat, so it's fair balance there. I already did a episode where I was not a cat maid, but I was a maid for Halloween. Which one is this? Number 15, I think. I guess. Thank you for the follow, Orion_Spool. So if somebody just wants to take that and just draw cat ears on it, that's your cat maid. So I've already done that. No need to rehash. What am I going to do for this year's Halloween episode? Who knows? Double Vincent. No. It's taken me several years to get to the point to where I don't need to watch a YouTube video anytime I do a tie. So whatever knot this is, just being able to look in the mirror and in 10 seconds have the tie done and I can just go is good enough for me. I remember when I was in high school, I had to wake my dad up one day. They're like, "Dad, can you tie my tie for me?" Heinz Doofenshmirtz. We were going to do that for actual Halloween this year, but we didn't do actual Halloween. Teach you guys how to tie your tie. Are we just gonna turn this into how to young men life hacks or something podcast? Teach you guys how to be adults. Clip-on tie. Clip-on tie. I mean, as long as you don't tell people to clip on, I think you can get away with it. Dad gun. Thank you to the people, I guess, who pinged Miss Popgun yesterday for Mother's Day. That's both hilarious and not at the same time. You always ruin the length of the tie. That's important. You don't want to like trump it up to where it's like past your junk, and you also don't want it to be like way. You want it to be. I think you want it ideally. You want the end of the tie to be like at your belt buckle. I think that's the ideal look, or maybe just above it or something. You asked what the topics are. They're starting soon. Today we're gonna mainly it's just gonna be talking to Luti. Emil of Luti is going to be the main thing. No real tournaments to recap. Nothing on Twitter I saw pissed me off to where I want to do a full rant about it. So, but testing grounds. What about testing grounds? What happened? Did all 15 people that played in that tournament did something amazing? I'll look at testing grounds right now. How about that? Not that I'm dissing on testing grounds. A lot of tournaments are having low turnouts because people are playing Luti sets, but alright. You took a game off of Arctic Moon. Congratulations. Next time you sign up for Luti, just put 1-2 Arctic Moon and we'll put you in Div 2. How about that? What's this, number 16? Yes. Alright. 25 teams played in this, actually. That's a huge number for... Let's see. 21 played in it. 4 didn't check in. Crayola kids. Thimble IHOP beat unidentified Woomies because they dropped. Congratulations. Congratulations, IHOP. They dropped because they had to go to bed? What is... The only thing keeping this community from taking that next step as an esport is bedtimes. Bedtimes have claimed so many tournament lives. It's not fair. There they are. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or VOD, Twitch or YouTube, or Spotify, while you're calling your mom because you forgot yesterday was Mother's Day, dog piling onto the tower at the reef only to be wiped out by a booyah bomb, calling me out on your podcast, hoping that I'll put your team in the low ink top 10 next week, whatever it is that you're doing right now. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. That's right. That's right. I've done it. Well, not me specifically, but other people have cracked the code, and we have figured out a way to cheat the formula so that we can get this, what you're listening to right now, on Spotify. So I feel like episode 50 is a good place to start. We are going to be uploading this episode. I'm not going to go back and upload all the other ones, but everything is going up onto Spotify at some point this week, starting with this episode. Thank you to Chili of Amnesia, who was pushing for this to happen and has sent me some information and messed around with some things, and we figured it out. I don't know what time specifically this week this specific episode is coming up. I'm going to need to make it so that I cut out that 15-minute intro so that when you're listening to this on Spotify, the first thing you're going to hear is, hello, friends, and then we go from there. So we'll So there we go. We're expanding horizons, more ways to consume my content, my juicy content that I'm putting out for you guys. The only difference is if you're listening to this on Spotify, you're not going to be knowing what people are saying in chat. Don't worry, they're not saying anything important anyways. You're not going to be able to see my beautiful face. And that is something you're just going to have to. You're not going to be able to sleep at night not knowing what I look like. So, or maybe you're just imagining me. But I'm just going to leave that to you. You imagine whatever you want to do. Anyways, news, tournaments that are coming up. Low-level tournaments that are coming up. Low-level tournaments are back. It's been a while. It has been a hot minute. But this upcoming weekend, we got some juicy tournaments for you. First off, Minnow Cup is back. Clan Blitz Edition, that is going to be this Saturday. I believe that is, the 15th? Is that the official date? Yes. This Saturday, 15th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Clan Blitz Edition. I believe the cutoff for that tournament is Div 5 and below, but if you're Div 4, you can put in an exemption. So make sure you sign up for that. I think I already saw 25 teams signed up, which in this day and age during Luti season 25 is a lot. The other tournament going on is Checkpoint 1. We haven't had a Checkpoint 1 tournament in a long time. And I'll tell you this right now. Checkpoint 1 might be the biggest Splatoon server we have in the entire community. The Checkpoint 1 is basically like the lowest low level, and that is a huge portion of the community. I'm telling you guys, we'll keep an eye on this Checkpoint 1 tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if it is one of the biggest tournaments we have this year. I haven't looked at it. It could not be. It could be a completely horrible, nobody signs up for it, but just my own thoughts of what this tournament could be. It could be really huge. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, Popgun, how can two low-level tournaments happen at the same time? Well, Minnow Cup, the teams that would play in Minnow Cup are all banned from Checkpoint 1 anyway, I would assume, and the teams that would play in Checkpoint 1 normally wouldn't sign up for something like Minnow Cup anyways. Checkpoint 1 is legit like the true starting point for this community, and the fact that they're doing another, I guess, in-house tournament, I believe that is going to be on IPL. I don't think we run it, but I think we at least broadcast it for them. So if you are looking for something to do this weekend and you're eligible for either one of those tournaments, both those tournaments, make sure you sign up for one of them if you're not doing a Luti set. Today, I'm going to be talking to the head of Luti, the CEO, president, all that jazz, Emil, who is kind enough to come on to the Popcast today to answer a lot of our questions about this Luti season, and so, some other topics that Emil brought up that they wanted to discuss. So we'll be talking about that in detail today. But first, we have arrived at 50 frickin' episodes of the Popcast. That is crazy. That is really bizarre. When I first did this, the first episode that I did, I recapped Little Squid League, Ash Cup, and I did just like a preview of the upcoming Low Ink. And I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do a podcast of some sort. And I knew that low level was the target market for something like this because low level has always been underrepresented as far as like conversations, I guess, that are being had in a open, broad place like the Popcast is. So I did my first episode. If you go back and watch it, I haven't because I'm kind of, I don't know, I feel like it'd be kind of cringe. It's just my old logo and a black screen, and that's it. Like, there's no webcam, there's no today's topics, this fancy feature that, hold on, I knocked out my thing. that my friend Carrot has made for me. This fancy overlay didn't even exist. It was just my voice, which I guess was the original intent. I guess if it's a podcast, it's not something you look at. But this has become more of a show that you get to watch on a weekly basis. I can't believe I'm doing this weekly. I've not missed a week. It hasn't been 50 weeks because sometimes I've done 2 episodes. I might do 3 episodes next week because Low Ink preview, Luti recap, and 2 tournaments I got to recap. We might do 3 episodes next week, and that is really bizarre. Did I think I would get to this point? I don't know. I didn't really have any goals when I started a Popcast or the podcast. I just felt like it'd be something fun to do, and people started watching, and people followed and liked and subscribed and all that nonsense. So I just kept doing it, and more people have kept watching it. So it's been a fun ride. The question though is this the milestone I want? It's one I'm gonna celebrate. Obviously, 50 is a cool number. But this isn't the milestone I exactly want. Now that I'm in a groove, I've figured out how to go through this thing, figured out how this kind of works. I want to do more. There's no exact number that I want to get to, but I would like to get well past 100. I would like this to eventually become something that is the front, like this is going to be the main place anybody comes to get news or my professional opinion on things going on in the entire competitive Splatoon community. How I would get to that point, I don't know. But to get to that, I don't want to lose focus of what the Popcast originally was meant to be. This was to tell the stories of things going on in low level because nobody else was talking about that. But now we're talking about it consistently. Low level has really grown since, not saying it's because of me, but low level has really grown a lot since the first episode of the podcast. Low Ink has become a monthly major that bans half the community, but still gets 100 plus teams for it all the time. Little Squid League has grown a lot. Minnow Cup has formed and has become a really good, consistent monster. Launch Point, Checkpoint One, all these great servers in terms, like low level has really exploded. So that's given me a lot of content to kind of talk about. But as a player who's now in the mid-level scene myself, I've started to realize, okay, now mid-level needs some attention. And then when it gets to that, it's like, okay, well, why just cover just mid-level when we could cover everything across the entire spectrum? And that's eventually what I would like to get to. But that's not going to be anytime soon. A lot of people ask me, how do I have time to do what I do? The Popcast, TOing, commentating, being a husband, working a full-time job, captaining a team that has been in existence for 2.5 years, taking it from the very bottom of Div 6, back when Div 7 was the floor, up to a Div 3 team, where a Div 13 technically is the floor. Like, how do I have time to do all of this stuff? It's really not that difficult, honestly. you once you get into a rhythm of doing something, it's very simple. Here's the notes that I have for this. That's it. Just like 2/3 of a page. Now, most of it is going to be Emil talking, which I sent them questions beforehand, so it's a really easy thing to get through. But I've gotten into a good rhythm of just writing down bullet points and then taking those bullet points of like 2 or 3 or like 4 or 5 words and just expanding it into like a 2 to 3 minute kind of topic that I run with there. Most of the time when I'm writing a podcast, I'm doing it while I'm doing something that I would normally like something that doesn't really require me to focus on anything else. Like when I'm mowing my yard, I'm writing the Popcast. When I'm driving my car on the interstate, I'm writing the podcast. When I'm listening to my boss talk to me, I'm dazing off and writing the podcast. All of these things, like there's so much time in your day to where you're just kind of alone with yourself. And as an introvert, as a self-diagnosed introvert, you got to learn to enjoy spending time with yourself. And most of the time I spend with myself is writing, it's just writing things in my head. And then when I could just come time to put something on paper, just a bullet point, write it out. And then I just wake up, put on my suit and tie and go. And that system has worked out really well. And it doesn't really take that much time to do something like this. So that's, so getting into this rhythm that I'm in has made doing podcast episodes really easy. And at the same time, there's something that I'm proud of. I haven't gotten to a point yet where I look at the podcast and I'm like, I feel like I'm kind of half-assing this, or like, I really don't like that. The biggest fan of the podcast is me. Like I love listening to it. I'll listen to it when I'm walking the dog. I'll listen to it while I'm I get steps, right? So for the past 5 years, I get 10,000 steps every single day on my Fitbit. I have not missed a single day in 5 years. To do that, I spend a lot of time walking around my kitchen. When I'm doing that, I'm either writing the podcast or I listen to it. So listening to it is something I'm excited about. And as long as I'm still excited about listening to it, then I'm going to keep doing it. And as long as, and I'm still enjoying it. So why not keep this train going? A lot of people have been involved in this. This is mainly me doing all of this, but there's a lot of people that are involved behind the scenes that do little things that help out. Shout outs to the, I guess no longer the West Broadway Grillers, but just the Grillers were the first team I ever had on the podcast. Episode 2. I was not anybody then. I'm not saying I'm somebody now, but like I was just some random dude. I reached out, hey, you guys won Low Ink. Do you want to come on to this thing I'm trying to do and just talk about winning Low Ink? And it was Sam and Jim of the Grillers who came on and talked about their experience winning Low Ink. I believe that was July of last year. And then Luau won. We got Luau on, and then Xanadu won. Bring in Xanadu, and just kind of gone from there. We brought in Magic 8 Ball to talk about the CCA, the College Cephalopod Association. We brought in Roundy, who has some really good takes on a lot of things in this community, who is involved in the Western Top 50. We brought in SAC. Yeet from SAC. I remember I DM'd SAC and was like, hey, you guys got a season coming up. Can you come on my show and answer some questions? And I didn't think they would respond. And they did, and they sent me Yeet, and Yeet was like, hey, anytime you want me to come back on, let me come on. So Yeet has become like my beat writer, I guess, or the beat reporter for the SAC, who can come on to the podcast. And I'm gonna reach out to Yeet eventually. Now that this next season is coming up at some point, you think they said they wanted to do June. So we've had a lot of people help out. Brought in Smile. K-Bot was on last week. Obviously, the head Luti guy is going to be coming on this time. So a lot of, and several other people I haven't mentioned. Launch Point staff, Checkpoint 1 staff was on at some point. We did an interview with Bread Gang, Thimbo, IHOP, the Deep Fried Octolings, and several people that have been a part of an episode. And those episodes are really easy to write because I can just send someone a list of questions, and then just like half of the episode's already written and I haven't even done anything. So those things are always good to do. My wife is a big help in this as well. I've started this new system to where it used to just be me taking a break and then going to like setting up like the interview with whoever I was talking to, and then just coming back and being like, here's this person. Now it's much more natural. I just hop in to a VC and we just go right there. Well, how do you do that without it being awkward? Well, whoever the guest is hops in the VC first. My wife hops in during the show and checks in on them, like, hey, your mic working good? He's just gonna here's how this is going to work. And everything's going to be going smooth from there. Are you cool with that and all that? And then my wife DMs me, they're ready to go, and I just hop in and we go. So my wife has been like the behind the scenes producer, I guess you could say, of the podcast. She brought me water in the middle of the episode last week because I forgot. She's helped me write some of these some of my rants. There's some of the rants that I was more angry about, I guess you could say. I was more passionate about. Whenever there's a major and people are just pointing the finger at low level for not signing up for things, that's usually when I get the most pissed off. And that's usually when I do like full on rants about things. And my wife has sometimes been like, tone this down a little bit, or you should not feel afraid to talk about this, because this is something that not a lot of people have an opportunity to talk about because they don't have a voice or a platform to say things like this. So my wife has been extremely helpful for this behind the scenes. So and she was the only in-house guest, the only in-studio guest we've had on the podcast. So love you, honey. Happy Mother's Day yesterday, I guess, since people pinged you about that. Carrot has been a big help to this as well. If you look at this overlay right here, Carrot made this for me, and she's also working on a new overlay because my Luti overlay sucks. And she was like, why didn't you tell me about this sooner? I could have done this a whole lot sooner so that you don't look like your overlay doesn't look like crap. So Carrot has been like the technical support kind of person who I usually send her questions because I don't know anything about any of this, like how to get the stream going, overlays, the mic, headphone, like all the technical stuff. Has been a learning experience for me, and Carrot's been a big help for that. And the other person I want to mention are viewers like you. I have received an absorbent amount of fan mail, DMs on Discord and Twitter. There's just been, hey, you talked about my team and that we really liked that, and it was nice that somebody noticed us, or hey, thank you for making this comment about this certain topic. It really meant a lot to me and my team, kind of thing. So or hey, you got the top 10, you didn't put my team in the top 10 and we kicked butt. That's what you get for not putting us in there. So when, a lot of people have sent me things, VODs. I've gotten so many VODs from teams to be like, hey, here's what we did in Luti. You said you wanted it, so watch it. And I've watched every single one of them when I get the opportunity to. I don't always talk about them in detail, but if you send me a VOD, I try to make time to watch them, unless they're just like complete blowouts. Like a 5-0 result. But even those, sometimes I go back and watch them. A lot of people have sent me info, but like, hey, you said this about my team. Here's like a lot of more information about our team. Some people have called me out on things I've said that were incorrect. Those things I have gone back and since fixed in the next episode of a Popcast. I think I've done it like 3 or 4 times. A redaction, I believe, is the official term for that. So, just the support you guys have shown has been a big part of what this podcast is. What makes the podcast good is the information. The more information I have and store in my noggin, the better, more equipped I am to talk about things in this community, and that's a big part of you. So thank you to the people who have DM'd me stuff, unless I didn't appreciate it. Going forward, I did before we get to Emil, I did ask some Twitter questions. I did ask what were some things you guys wanted to talk about on this episode of the Popcast. I did get a few responses that I thought were legit, so we'll actually talk about them real quick, and then we'll get right into Emil. First off, Nick asked about the IHOP cast. Basically, I believe Damp took a screenshot of this overlay. I think the episode where I went to blow my nose, took a picture of that, and then drew some sort of rat creature making some announcements for IHOP in it. So I don't know, thoughts on that. I thought it was cool. IHOP, I guess the one thing to take away from that is that IHOP announced that they are self-banning themselves from the upcoming Low Inc. And I guess every Low Inc going forward, and they want to focus some more mid-level and open invite tournaments. So I'll have more to say about that specifically on the Low Inc preview episode next week. But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Nightwing asked for my thoughts on the Low Inc Div 4 teams as far as how they're doing in Luti. That is tricky. That is really tricky. I can't really answer that because you don't really know who the Div 4 Low Inc teams are. And in the position that I'm in as a TO, not the head TO, I'm just the guy at the register at McDonald's. And like JPEG is the manager, but I'm the one on here talking to you guys, the media. So it's tricky to be like, oh, this Div 4 team that's going to be playing in Low Inc, here's how good they're doing, because I don't know. I mean, I have it in my mind, but this isn't the place to be breaking who is and ain't going to be allowed to play in this upcoming Low Inc. So I can't really specifically talk about Low Inc Div 4 teams. I guess other than IHOP, because they said, screw it, we're done. I will say one thing, though. This is getting ahead of the noise before somebody makes too much noise about it. I did watch a Div 4 match last week. And pointed something out. So Symphony played Night Surfing. Night Surfing is the current Low Inc champion. Symphony has lost to a couple of teams already. Let me look this up exactly before So Symphony in this group specifically has already lost to the Grillers and Thimbo IHOP. Night Surfing beat the Grillers and the Krusty Crew. So logic would tell you that Symphony would lose that set. Now, I didn't do like a preview or anything like that. I didn't make a prediction about this set. But Symphony ended up beating Night Surfing 5-4, and I watched it. And I said, just as a joke, you guys were supposed to lose this set, because they were. But this is a good upset. Well, actually, is this an upset is what I was thinking about. No, I wouldn't consider this an upset, because A, Symphony plays a lot better in tournaments that don't have the words Low Inc in it for whatever reason. And B, Symphony is a well-established old veteran team. To say that they upset Night Surfing, even though Night Surfing definitely was the favorite, but to call that an upset, I feel like is disrespect to Symphony. But yeah, I made the comment. You guys knew you were supposed to lose this one, right? And they didn't. So there you go. Don't come into my chat, Symphony, and start making noise. Congratulations on getting that win. But I don't need any of your sass. Top 10 friendliest teams. That's a trap. That is a trap, because I'm going to miss somebody, and then they're going to be like, my team's not friendly. Popcast thinks we're a bunch of a-holes. Well, I do, but I don't want you guys to be completely aware of that. Echo of the Mahi Monsoon made a list, and somebody asked me to make a list as well. Instead, I'm just going to read off Echo's top 10 friendliest teams personal to them. Number 1 is Tooniverse, sucking up to my wife. It works. 2, Inkstrike Inklings. 3, CIA. 4, The Wiggly Phantoms. 5, Patty. I said that backwards. ITAP. Number 6, Booyah X. 7, System of Splashdown. 8, Team Name Guys Please. 9, Shiver Me Inklings. Number 10, Twisted Time. I would not put number 10, Twisted Time on there. They are not friendly at all. They're a bunch of jerks. I think Evie will tell you that for sure. Minnow Cup preview. People wanted me to do that. I don't know. I don't want to get into a habit of previewing every single tournament that we have here in this community. I do the low ink preview because that's an easy thing to talk about. It's basically a way to talk about 60 some odd teams in one episode in like an hour. As well as like my personal top 10, which is always incorrect, and people always seem to use as motivation to put a chip on our shoulder. We'll show Popgun. Popgun put me in the top 10. We'll show him. Yeah, you show. You got me. You got me there. But if you want a team I think is going to win Minnow Cup, just off of the 25 that are currently registered right here, I think this is Synergy's tournament to lose. Synergy is really popping off in Luti. Like, it looks like they're pretty much a lock to make playoffs in Div 4. Again, I want to point out Minnow Cup is not low ink, so teams that get into Minnow Cup doesn't mean that low ink is going to let you in. I'm not making a statement about anything. I'm just pointing that out. But Synergy on paper, I don't know how good they are with Clam Blitz in particular, but just top to bottom skill-wise, this seems like Synergy's tournament to lose. If they find a way to do that. If you want me to do a small thing, instead of a top 10, let's do top 3 teams that I am personally interested in this tournament. Number 3 would be Dark Rain. This was a beta bracket team that got bumped up to alpha bracket because 3AM dropped. And I think 3AM is in this tournament. Yeah, they are now 3A Meow, which is probably going to look a lot better on the Excel sheet instead of just 3 a.m., which ultimately converts them to the time, and then we can't find that team ever again. So 3A Meow works out well. But Dark Rain could have been a really good contender for Mahi Mahi if they stayed in beta bracket. So Dark Rain's a team we want to keep an eye on. Number 2, Insurance Agency. When your team name has the word ink in it, you tend to get mixed up and lost in the shuffle. It's not a good for your brand recognition unless you pop off. And Insurance Agency has been popping off mainly in beta bracket, so we'll be keeping an eye on them to see how good they do here. I believe they've been doing good in Luti as well. Can't think of what it is off the top of my head. The number 1 team I want to keep an eye on, though, is Mahi Mahi Monsoon. This isn't like a sleeper team. I feel like this is a team that has caught a lot of people's attention, but before we had just known them as the team that won LSL. Now that is just a long distant memory because they did really well in one beta bracket. But now this is an opportunity for them to kind of show that they are much better than all of that combined. Could they win a bigger tournament like this? Are they going to be a top 10 team going forward? If more Div 4 teams get kicked out of low ink, this will be a good indicator. So those are the 3 teams I just keep an eye on. Lastly, Sir Skit asked to acknowledge the Popgun Simps. All right, I'll do that right now. Sir Skit. And there we go. Let's hop in here. Move the arrow on down. And bring in the one and only Emil to the Popcast. I guess I should say, am I pronouncing that correctly? Is it pronounced Emil?
Hey, the English pronunciation is a bit different from the Dutch or the Swedish one, but anything is fine, really. I would say Emil, but
Emil.
anything is fine.
No, not anything is fine. That's not how this works. You have a name. It needs to be pronounced.
Emily is too far off, but anything closer to Emily is fine.
Emily works out fine. Welcome in, Emily, Emil, Maximilian.
Thank you, Willie.
into the Popcast here. The head TO for Luti, correct?
Yes, I would say that is correct.
What?
I don't like to hear it that way.
You don't like to hear it that way? How would you describe yourself then?
Well, in the early stages of Luti, we definitely had some sort of corporate ladder. And I would say I have the most responsibilities. Like, I'm ultimately the guy who if something goes wrong, then it's my fault. But I have the crown next to my name, which I suppose makes me the head one. Uh, but I feel like we're more of a team, and everyone does something differently. Uh, so it's hard to really say I'm the head TO. But I have the responsibility if something goes wrong, so it's my fault.
There you go. That's how it should be. So how many people are on staff for Luti officially?
Officially, wait, let me go into the staff server right now and see how many are there. Officially, we have 9 people in the staff server. Three of them I haven't heard from in probably months. So I would say that we have officially 6 people on staff, and then some friendly people who stick around for a bit.
6 people. So for 320 teams, you got about one staff member for every, what, 60 some odd teams, something like that. My,
About 50 odd teams, yeah.
jeez, that's wow. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. You talked
Well,
about
it's really
TOs
because
not
of the
getting
wonders
along.
of technology that it's even possible right now. Because Lean does wonders with a lot of his. I mean, you know Lean, right? He automates a lot of things, and without it, it would be really difficult
Hmm.
to handle all 300 odd teams. But they're able to make sure that all the scores are filled in automatically, and that uh, the fantasy bracket runs smoothly and certain aspects. So that really helps a lot.
Yes. Yeah. We have a guy like that as well at IPL. We have Vincent,
Hmm.
who is a part of the seating council.
Uh,
It's always nice to have somebody who can just create bots that just make life
hmm.
so much easier for a lot of people. What is? I guess give us like the brief history. Like what? This is season 11. When did season 1 come in? How it started? And why Ludi still exists today?
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, Luti started off really as a fairly new project by a group of people. I would say that the group of staff members is even larger at that point than it is now. Back when it had, about 100 teams, the staff was larger than it is right now. Um, back when snipers were still running Bluefin Depot, and early 2006 when you still had a luscious head of hair. Uh, the Luti, the official Luti creators, I would say, are probably Nick, Demi, and BTM. But there were many that helped. K-Bot was around at that time as well. He helped create Luti. He organized the league. We had Tyflow, Fighter Sword, Zarkith, and Charlight and Tortoise did some of the streams for that. And it really was clear who what everything did. So everyone what did. So Demi did a lot of the graphic design and the media for Luti. Nick was kind of the head TO, I would say what I'm right now, who did public relation things. And BTM was the stats guy, which is what Lean is right now, or what Vincent is in your case. Um, and back when Luti started, the format was quite similar, but the atmosphere was very different. At that time, there were 7 or 8 team groups. We started out with 8, but we also did 7 for some reason, and then you had like a weird buy in the middle of your league, and then like 2 extra weeks or something, and it was very weird. Uh, but the atmosphere, I would say, was quite different because back in the day, the teams, I mean, the community in Splatoon was a lot smaller. So you would say now, we have 300 odd teams sign up for Luti, and that's probably not even a third of the competitive community. And even that is like not even a fraction of what is actually playing Splatoon in terms of users. But back in the day, everyone kind of knew who each other was. So uh, Luti was not really about divisions and that at that time or about improving. It was just really cool and a new idea that hadn't been done before. So that's really how it started out. And also because everyone kind of knew each other, it also wasn't that difficult to uh, create the divisions and be in different groups because everyone kind of played each other. And so, I mean, with 100 teams, it sounds like a lot, but you have to understand that also the whole Splatoon community was organized differently at that point. Because at the moment, we have very dedicated tournaments, like uh, the Inkling Technology Labs, Inkling Performance Labs, like Low Ink that you are organizing, or the Little Squid League, or I would say Minnow Cup for like mid-level teams, and everyone has kind of their own circle. But back then, it was much easier to get in and out of teams, and everyone was playing a bit more, kind of in the Japanese way that they are doing pickups. It's not that excessive, of course, but it's closer to that. Um, so the league was kind of created to create a place where teams could really fight each other for the first time at their own level. Um, Back in the day, I wasn't really organizing it yet in the first season. I really only came around in the second season. Um, and by, I would say, the fourth season, I would say that nearly everyone who organized the first season had left. Almost everyone was gone. And it was about by the third season, it was given to me as a sort of uh, as I was given by Nick, who was the head TO at the time. We were good friends, especially at the time. I haven't spoken to him in a few years now, really. But he gave it to me, and we got new staff, and we really organized it uh, like it is now. But I can't hear you anymore. Are you talking? Sorry.
No, I'm just letting you go. This is I've
I'm
I
sorry if I was Euroflash. I'm so sorry.
no, you made a joke about my hair, and my wife in the next room, I could hear her laughing her ass off at it. So that was great. But no, I'm just like everyone else. I'm
No,
just
I'm just
listening
ranting
and
for a bit.
absorb. I feel
Sure.
like a lot of people don't know who is behind the Luti, like that,
Yeah.
like the Luti stuff. So I just want to give people an opportunity to hear you, honestly, probably for the first time. And you talked about Luti being a smaller tournament, well, the community being a smaller tournament, but you can't deny Luti is the biggest thing in this community right now. When you guys make a tweet that just
Hmm.
says soon, that's
Yeah,
it.
that
And
was
people
absurd.
people go crazy. People are like, people who have said I'm leaving this community and I'm never coming back. We're making tweets like, ooh, who wants to do a pickup with me for this upcoming Ludi
Hmm.
season that hasn't even been announced? And you
Yeah.
got all kinds of, I mean, 320 teams initially sign. Like, it's does that weigh into your mind the impact that Ludi has on the community today versus where it was before?
Yeah, I'm actually so surprised as well at most of that because unlike many other tournaments, I would say tournaments like things that are Endgame TV is doing, they have, a well-built media team and they have so many people who do awesome work. And we're up here just, I mean, you've seen my graphic design skills. It's nothing special. And uh, there are so many things that I'm just posting a sign up form somewhere on Twitter, and Endgame TV is like doing so much awesome stuff with so many prize pools and good cast, and they're all doing so well. And we're barely working for it, and we're getting like 300 odd sign-ups. It's so weird. But I think it's just the formula, honestly. Uh, the formula of Luti just being able to sign up and uh, get good matches against people of approximately your own skill, and really seeing yourself grow as a team as well between seasons. I think that's just what pulls people in. I think Luti's probably uh, partly people are coming back because I think like the staff is nice and we're like helping people play and we're like not doing too hard on people. Uh, the format is nice, but it's also partly because of probably the division thing where people are like, okay, I'm looking for a scrim at division 78,314 level. And then they're like, wait, what's a division? And then, that league gets linked and they're like, oh, I should play in this. I think it's so much mouth to mouth advertising that is done for us that we don't have to do, and that we're so lucky that is even being done, honestly. And by the way, I have a question for you, a quiz question. I'm putting you on the spot a bit here,
Bring it
but
on.
we have had two teams that have played in Luti Division 1 that are still playing today in Luti Division 11, in Luti Season 11. They have played from the Season 1 until Season 11. I'm wondering if you could name one of those two teams, because, I mean, I think
Well,
you might get one, but I think two is going to be very hard. I'm
okay.
trying
Well,
to figure
here,
out if you can.
my first Ludi did. I think our first time when we were known as Sploot Troops was season 7. So I'm
Yeah.
missing some. Give me here. Help me out here. Tell me the div that the more common team is, and I could probably guess it.
They have both been around Division 3 and 4 for like 10 seasons in a row. But
Three
one
and
of the teams is also kind of establishing themselves as being also like an old team, so that might be able to help you.
I'm gonna take it. You say 3 or 4. I'm gonna take a guess. Geek Squids.
No, not Geek
No,
Squids. I
because
don't think they
I
were
know
around in
they're an
season one.
older team. All right, get.
Yeah, that's true.
That's my best
Day Old
guess.
Sushi has been
Oh,
around since season one.
yes,
Yeah,
that's okay. I didn't know they were around since the. I
yeah,
know they've been
yeah,
around
yeah.
for a while, but yeah, I guess that's an
And
obvious one.
the other one is Los Inklings, who's also been around since season one.
Well, that makes sense because
Mhm.
and they were used to be like a Div 3 team when we first played in Lowy when we first played in Ludi. So yeah, I remember the brand Los
Mhm.
Inklings. Okay, so those are two I should have known. I feel like Geek Squid's
Yeah,
a good guess though, but I guess they haven't been
Geek
playing
Squids was a good
competitive.
guess. They have been around for a long time as well. Los Inklings has actually played in season one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, and 11. They only missed season 10.
So they missed
So they
that.
just broke their streak. Yeah.
So then
Sad. I'm not sure what we did wrong in season 10.
Dale Sushi's the only team to go from 1 to 11
No,
officially.
it's Dale Tusha missed season 6, actually. So
Oh,
they have
okay.
also missed a season. But they were around for seasons 1 through 5. So.
You know, I didn't send you this question, but since you bring up these, just two teams have 10 Ludis under their belt. Ludi has this reputation of being a team killer. I don't think that's fair because I say if
Mhm.
you disband because of Ludi, you never had a team to begin with. Are you aware of that kind of reputation? Do you have a comment on that? I
Yes,
guess.
I mean, we joke about it as well. I mean, but I think also that teams just disband a lot and teams just change up a lot. And I think that because Luti is such a long thing, I mean, from signing up, we probably have like usually about 2 weeks of sign-ups, then we have 6 weeks of regular season, and then 3 weeks of playoffs. You might be looking at, 2.5 to 3 months of a Luti season. So during 3 months, there's just a lot of teams that disband. And I don't think it's because of Luti specifically. I think it's just the fact that over a long period of time, there's going to be a bunch of teams that disband. And if you have 300 odds teams in Luti, some of them are going to disband during that 3 weeks. And I'm sure that playing in Luti has a small part in it, but I don't think that you can expect all 300 odd teams to be playing for 3 months and sit it out because teams are changing up a lot. I mean, maybe not at like the lower levels, but like especially around the mid level, a lot of teams are breaking up and coming back together and breaking up and coming back together. So I think it's just mostly that Luti takes a long time. And then also because everyone posts their Luti matches on Twitter. So if they post 3 Luti matches and then they suddenly disband, then they have to post on Twitter because otherwise it's weird, you know? So I think it's just a lot of that it's a long time and that they post a lot about it on Twitter. The fact that I think those two uh, collaborate to make Luti kind of a team killer, even though I personally don't think that there's a lot of teams that disband because of Luti.
How did the seeding week go in your opinion? Now, now that we kind of reflect back on it, I've had Smile
Hmm.
on and Smile gave their thoughts, but what were your thoughts on seeding week?
I think it went honestly amazingly well. I really appreciate the help that we got. Uh, for the first time, I would say probably ever, I wasn't too involved with the specific seeding of teams because for the past few months, I unfortunately haven't had much time to follow other tournaments. Usually, I like following tournaments, but I haven't had much time to follow them personally. So there were two things I could do was either I could spend a week sifting through all the lower level tournaments of the past months, all the low inks, all the tournaments that you organize, or I could just ask the people that organize those tournaments and they told me what the teams are that they're better. And I think you did really well. I mean, you told me you had nightmares, right, from the teams that you had to seed.
I didn't call
Who
it
closed it?
nightmares. I dreamed about seeding teams. I said it
Yeah,
wasn't a nightmare because I could tolerate, but it was definitely like, all
yeah.
right, I'm getting up out of bed. I'm gonna walk around to reset and get a new dream going. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's,
No,
you
no,
you
you're
didn't
right.
have
But
that case is what you're saying. You didn't have any
no, no,
dreams about.
I don't have nightmare seeding teams. I've done it enough times so that I've gotten accustomed to it. No, but
How's
it was
this?
really helpful. I think you did so
Yeah.
well, like the entire group.
Well, thank you. My first time being involved in it, I had no idea what to expect. But you're saying that this it went smoother than it ever has been, is what you were saying.
Well, I mean, with three other teams, you could it smoother is always relative,
Right.
right? But I
Right.
think with so many more matchups in the lower levels as well, because really, I mean, as you said, you said that this podcast has already grown the lower level scene and it's just grown in general. That has also helped us a lot with seeding, because I mean, in the past, I would say around season 5 or 6. I was basically I almost did like the lower divisions by myself. I had to research everything. I had to do everything. Not always, of course, and I always had some help, but that's sometimes how it felt like. But with so many lower tournaments now that are organized and that people are there to help me, I think it's gone really well just because of that and because of the growth of the lower level scene.
Uh, how's the tournament go or the season going so far from your perspective?
In my opinion, actually quite well. Drops have been average. It does kind of surprise me that so many division, I think like 8 and 6 are dropping. 7 is doing amazingly well. Has there even been a single Division 17 that dropped? I think you
All right,
said
I
like
think
there
you're
has been only
saying.
one.
I think you mean six is doing well. Seven's
Oh,
the
6 is doing well.
dumpster
Sorry.
fire. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you're right. My mind. That
Yes.
I switched up
Six
the two.
had played 47 out of 48 matches the last time I checked through week 2, and nobody's dropped yet. So yeah, Div 6
Hmm.
is doing Luti right, which is
Hmm.
impressive because there's 48 teams. That's one of the biggest groups ever. 48 teams. So
Hmm.
and they're
Yeah.
yeah, way to go, Div
And
6.
also a few of the higher level teams, because of course, how well a season is going, how well, the entrants are, it kind of differs from person to person what they prefer. Personally, I've hosted so many tournaments now of Luti that I don't really care anymore about what high level teams are entering or how many people are entering. When I saw that we were like potentially getting 400 teams signing up, my first thought was, oh no, we're going to have 400 teams signing up. Not, yes, we're having 400 teams sign up, which is maybe the wrong like thing to think, but I'm not personally too invested anymore in the amount of teams that sign up or the amount of high level teams that sign up. Though I know others do. I think Toby, I think, does like to see high level teams sign up and have some sort of really real competition for that first spot, which I also like. But personally, I mostly host Luti just because, and this is also the reason why it's been around for so long, is that so many people just like playing in Luti, and so many people just enjoy this time with the team and practicing it and playing at a good level. That means more to me than the amount of higher level teams that sign up, or the amount of drops that we have, or the amount of teams in general that sign up.
Yeah, I beat the drum on that every single week here on the podcast. High level stuff is great, and low level likes to watch high level
Hmm.
Splatoon being played. and would like to see more opportunities for those big name brand teams to play off against each other. But if you look at the pyramid of the community, the base being the low level, the reason it's the base is because it's got a gazillion and a half players in it. It's the bulk of the entire community. So yeah, Luti definitely is definitely something that's built more for those kind of teams. Just because they don't have something like this where they can go like top to bottom the entire community play and something they can be involved in.
Hmm.
Speaking of this many number of teams, one of the things we discussed was for the lower divs, or how were we going to disperse all of these teams? You could have had like a Div 13, which would have been really weird to see someone ask
Yeah.
here scrim Div 10 plus, or
Yeah.
you could have had 48 teams per group. Now that we're like 3 weeks into it, do you still feel like the 48 teams in Div 4 through 7 and a little bit more in 8 is the way to go, or are you kind of second guessing and thinking I kind of want to see a Div 12 and see what that would look like?
No, I think it was a very good decision to me anyway. I haven't really seen any complaints about it yet, and I personally think it's the better solution than having a lot of divisions. I mean, we haven't really talked about the divisions yet. I'm sure there's going to be a question, or maybe someone in the chat will ask me a question about that. But I personally don't really mind the fact that divisions are used as like a general indication of skill. I'm personally more against people taking the Luti divisions at face value and saying, okay, we're a Division 4 team. That means we're never going to be able to beat any Division 3 team and any Division 5 team. They're
Mm-hmm.
too like low light for even scrim. I think that's like the wrong way of looking at it. But I do think it's somehow kind of fair to say, okay, we kind of want to scrim teams around our own group or around our own skill level. So in that sense, I think it's somehow useful to keep the amount of divisions approximately equal. And of course, the amount of teams that sign up is a lot more. But at the same time, I mean, the amount of teams in any group is a lot larger, but the amount of teams that sign up is also a lot larger. So I don't think that, with the lower divisions being so big now, that it's somehow better or worse in terms of skill than it was before. I think probably the skill is about equal. I don't have the exact stats, of course, and it could be a bit, higher or lower. But I think it's a smarter move to keep some sort of bench line or some sort of baseline to evaluate teams or to find teams that you might want to scrim or want to find as set scrimming partners than it is to keep the 24 team groups. And I also personally don't really mind having a bit of a skill gap within a division. I think um, you don't always necessarily have to play against teams that are exactly as strong as you are. I mean, a team is going to have to win a division, right? So it's not too bad for me that some teams are better than other teams within a division. I think it's also good to scrim teams that are maybe a bit better or a bit worse because they'll maybe play differently. And again, I haven't read any complaints about the 48 thing, so I think it's fine. And it also maybe gives a post Luti match against US versus the world or something. Though I do have to admit that I haven't really read Twitter all that much. If I have to give advice to people, in chat, if you have any complaints or any suggestions whatsoever, the number one way for us to make sure that we never read it is to post it on Twitter and not ping us.
Mm-hmm.
That's an excellent way for us to literally never see it. If you want us to complain and us never to see it, you should not mention Luti and just post it on Twitter somewhere where you can't find it. Um,
That's the number one complaint IPL staff has about being a TO is people complaining on Twitter and not saying anything like to the TOs or in help desk or feedback or whatever. So it's like, I hate that this is happening. Well, okay, cool. There's ways you can go about fixing that instead of
we have a
just
feedback.
trying to get likes on Twitter about griping because griping
Mm-hmm.
is the best way to get likes. It seems like. So you missing Twitter? Don't worry, you're not missing anything. There's not, I promise you that. You
That's fine.
talked about a skill gap. I mean, yeah, that's going to happen no matter what. DivX is a perfect example. I mean, there are teams in DivX that just can't compete with what Starburst with what we saw
Hmm.
yesterday, especially. And you also said people shouldn't take divs as an indication of skill level. And Damp said something in chat that was you should be used as a guideline, not a rule. I agree with that. The problem is 90% of this community uses it as the rule and not a
Yes.
guideline, and that's kind of the issue. I don't know if you're aware of this, but during the break between season X and this season, you had people self-divving themselves.
Hmm.
You had people that were at here scrim, looking for scrim at a Div 3 level, and they're like gamma bracket low wink teams that think they're like, it was like
Yeah.
getting really ridiculous. Like, were you aware that, like, with Luti being gone, that there was just div chaos going on across the board in the community?
I mean, yeah, it's gonna happen like all the time. And I personally, I mean, a lot of people have a lot of trouble with it, but personally, I don't even mind it that people are like self-divving themselves. But then again, if people are putting a lot of value on those divisions, then it becomes bad. If you allow people to like self-div themselves and not attach too much value to it, then it becomes just like, okay, we want to find scrims at a certain level. And I don't think that's too bad. But of course, with people taking the divisions as important as they are, or well, or not, but uh, I think it only becomes a problem at that point. But if you haven't played in Luti ever, which I mean, not everyone likes Luti, that's fair. I don't force you to do that. You can still be of a certain level, and I think the divisions are currently the only way of really saying approximately how good you are. Like if you're like a mid-level team, you don't want to be playing Starburst and Radiant in a scrim, and you also don't want to be playing a team of A ranks because that's not going to really help you too much. So I think it's fair that people, even if they don't play in Luti, make some sort of general indication of skill level. But I think people just find it too important, or whether they're division, you know, X or division X minus one or X minus two or X minus three. Uh, Personally, I find that more problematic than people self-diving themselves. But I can also see uh, why people saying they're Division three when they're more like Division six or seven is can be seen as, in some sense, annoying and not really deserving. When you're a team that has been playing a Luti and working at it and improving as a team, and then someone else just says, "Oh, hey, look, I'm Division one, I can beat you." That can be seen as insulting. But I think it's fine that people are looking in general areas of strength. But if someone is looking for a scrim at Division 27 level, then it's fine if you're a Division 28 team and you contact them, or Division 26 or Division
Mm-hmm.
24, right? You're still gonna have a good scrim, but uh, I think it's not that big of a problem in my eyes. But of course, opinions can differ. Do you think it's what do you specifically not like about it?
It's the problem was not so much people looking for scrims at certain skill levels. It's just the inflated egos. Just it's the, oh, I
Yeah,
I play at this certain skill level, and it's like, well, no, your results would indicate that you're not. But
hmm
you get those egos kind of built up, and then when Luti divs finally come out and you realize, oh wait, I'm a Div 5 team. Well, the seating council
hmm
got this wrong. I'm not supposed to be here, or how, or like, wow, the seating council is it does no idea what they're doing, because I'm clearly, have you seen the teams I scrim against? I should be somewhere around here. In low level, it
hmm
was, I mean, yeah, like scrimming a, like if you scrim at a Div 3 level in it, and that's what you want to do to improve, like you said, that's totally fine. But it's just more so the fragile egos we have in this community that was very cringeworthy. And it was because
Yeah.
you can't like after 8 months of Luti being gone, what the hell does Div 3 who is Div 3? Like the teams that
Yeah.
technically had a Div 3 had either disbanded and reformed something else or had gone on to be not like there's no true indication of what Div 3 actually looked like. So that's
Hmm.
after that long a time, that's kind of what frustrated me. It was just like people, oh, I'm this skill level. Like we don't even know what that skill level looks like. I guess
Yeah,
was
that's
was
fair.
my frustration, but it became a joke in low ink that people were
Hmm.
claiming they were Div 2 and they couldn't even win low ink, and it was like, well, why are you why are you claiming this kind of thing? Um, Last question about Ludi, because I know there's some Nintendo stuff you wanted to get to.
Uh,
Uh,
I'm fine,
Go
but
on.
sure.
Oh, I was
No,
just
no,
gonna.
go ahead.
Okay,
I'm good with anything on this podcast. I'm just here to enjoy the show.
I was
Long time
just.
listener, by the way.
Oh, good. Well, first time caller. There you go. Uh,
Yeah.
what's the most credible complaint you've actually received this season so far?
I think in general, uh, what what the best complaint is specifically towards me is that sometimes my decisions are somehow like too generous, I would say. And that's, I mean, there are certain things about Luti that people don't like, but most of these things just come from the identity of being a league. So I don't think we should change most of those, even though they're maybe not ideal. But I think the one thing that maybe has been directed towards me, and I think is totally fair, is that on staff we kind of differ on philosophy. And, if someone comes to me, uh, which happened, I think even this week, and says, "Hey, look, we finished our first 2 weeks matches fine. Unfortunately, we've had, 11 pages of scheduling with this one team, and there's unfortunately no way, even though we would really love to schedule for this week, and we need to reschedule next week. Can we please play both of these matches in, this week, even though we're using tour schedules, and I can guarantee you that it'll be fine." I'll be like, "Yeah, okay, sure, you can just play those. It's fine." And even though, in the rules it says you can only use one reschedule, and we're quite strict about that.
Mm-hmm.
If someone has good reasons uh, and just wants to play their matches and maybe isn't a player of potential, I'll be like, "Yeah, sure, you can just play those matches for next week. I don't care." While another staff member, they might see that and be like, "Well, no, you used your reschedule already, and now you want to reschedule another one. You're gonna have to forfeit this match." And that's completely fair. And I can understand how someone else who hears this story is like, "Well, we had to like go through so much trouble of doing this, and why are you giving this team some sort of advantage, even though I won the same advantage and you didn't give it to me, right?"
Right.
So I think it's very fair that people come to me and say, "Hey, I don't think it's fair that you're allowing these teams to do this or to do that." And a lot of my philosophy is just, if teams can play their matches and just have fun doing it, I'm just like, "Okay, sure, I don't mind, and I'm not too strict about it." While some other staff members, and rightfully so, they would prefer to really keep the integrity of the tournament alive and to make sure that things are done in the right way. Um, and this has caused some, friction in the past of me being too nice to people and just saying, "Oh, you can do it." Well, in fact, maybe another team would have liked to do that and didn't get the opportunity by another staff member. So I think this is also, I suppose, the reason, or like the result of staff maybe being less, is that sometimes we just don't have, you know, 3 or 4 people online to talk about something. Sometimes I just have to make a decision, and that decision might be too nice or too generous. And then uh, this team, that I've just, "Okay, you can do this," is being given something that maybe they're not supposed to get. And I think that's a very credible complaint that I've gotten, which I maybe should be improving on, and just being a bit more strict on those type of things.
Well, that's something you definitely a lot of organizations struggle with is consistency. It's like no matter who you talk to in help desk, you get
Mhm.
the same answer. Maybe one staff member gives a smiley face at the end of their answer or something. But like yeah,
Yeah.
the struggling with consistency is it. And I assume like your help desk is popping off like 24/7, so it's
Hmm.
you're not always awake to answer, so it might be somebody completely different. So yeah, it's understandable with that many different things that Luti is that it can be difficult for consistency's sake, as you kind of said. uh who decided on the roll colors, and why who is married to the color green on Luti's staff is what I want to know.
Uh, this season, it is completely me who caused these colors to be used. If you have, or if anyone in chat has a better way of assigning colors, I'm completely okay with it.
Look,
But the
I
problem is, there is there are 9 divisions at the moment, and
right.
we can't use the color dark blue. So it's really hard to find 9 colors that are distinct, that are not black or white, because black is not going to work on dark Discord, and white's not going to work on light Discord.
Well,
That
yeah,
are distinct and that are fair.
white makes it seem like you'd have a role. Okay, I guess that's fair. It's so you basically it just looks like green and then slightly less green and then slightly more bluish green is all. Okay, so maybe
Mhm.
I haven't looked at how many different roles you can do the base. It just that's my only complaint is that all
No,
the
no, I
like
completely
three divs
agree.
look the same in my opinion, but I'm also not the most artistically sound
Yeah.
person in the universe.
No. They do look different to me, but I can also see why people think it's the same. But again, if anyone has a color scheme of 10 divisions that they prefer and that they feel like works fine here, please come to me. Please give the hex colors of the divisions that you want. But if someone goes to me and, oh, can we make division 4 black? And I'm like, no, no, please no.
No, no. See, I don't want to offer solutions. I just want to
Ah,
complain.
that's fair. That's fair. You're of the
That's
Twitter
I
generation.
yeah. uh you had some thoughts on Nintendo that you wanted to share. Now, I've had people on the podcast in the past who I knew were involved in some extent with Nintendo, like either the NA Opens or something like that. And I know I can't
Hmm.
ask them anything because of like they have like contracts signed where they can't really like
Yeah.
publicly talk about some things. Um, but you can say anything you want. So what thoughts
I
did
don't
you have?
know about
Or I guess what can you say? I guess.
No, I can say a lot of things, but I know that Nintendo doesn't like you saying certain things. Like they actually really don't like you saying certain things. So to keep I do have some friends at Nintendo just to keep them
Hmm.
happy, and also okay, I can't say it, but I can say a lot of things, but certain things I can't unfortunately say for deeper going reasons.
Right.
But yeah, I think Nintendo's gotten a lot of slack, I think is the right word, for sabotaging their own players. And I think you've previously also talked about this in a podcast a few
Yes.
months ago when I think it was the Big House that was organized, that was sabotaged by Nintendo when Nintendo just said, no, you can't host this. I don't want you to host this. And then they had to stop. And I think this has gone on for quite a while, you know. And I think Nintendo makes a lot of those types of decisions where you feel like, why aren't we allowed to stream Nintendo content? Why aren't we allowed to do certain things with Nintendo? Um, and I think there's a fair or valid reason for it. And I don't necessarily say that what Nintendo is doing is good, because I think it's maybe not the right decision. But a lot of people, I feel, say that Nintendo is just intentionally just like hating on their players and sabotaging them. And I think it does come from a sensible business decision, even though that decision is maybe not what people want it to be. But I do think it comes from a certain philosophy. But you've already talked about this, right? Are there any
Oh,
certain points that you really feel are,
well,
or is that so long ago that you just say, okay, Emil, just tell us what you want to think?
no, no. I remember the episode. I guess this. Gosh, this was like 20. 30 some odd episodes ago if I think about it, but still I
Hmm.
did a big rant after the Squid House thing. And yeah, I was critical of Nintendo as everyone else was. To be fair, I was also kind of critical slightly of in-game TV because I personally didn't feel like in my opinion they kind of hijacked the top 4 in kind of like, hey, you guys come and play in our tournament and let's create this thing. I think Squid House was great, a great thing for the community. I mean, the guys that won Squid House won more money than people who play in Jeopardy, you know. So that in itself is cool, but I didn't feel
Yeah.
like it was fair for in game to do what they did and kind of like take that because like Nintendo could have shut down the Squid House, couldn't they? If they wanted to.
I, I, I don't think it follows that. I think it's technically possible, but I think according to their philosophy, they shouldn't. But they could have probably, yeah.
So what? So my
They probably
complaint,
had to right to.
right? Well, I just thought just streaming wise, they could have been like, hey, you can't stream this because it's a hard
Mhm.
tournament that you're taking. But my complaint was I felt like in game was making a gamble on the soul of our competitive community on behalf of everyone, and I didn't think that was a fair gamble to make, but I feel like that gamble paid off. I mean, it got us connected to the Smash community. It brought in I mean, this is the biggest tournament Splatoon has ever seen this side of Japan, and it might never be topped. It would be cool if it could. More than 8,000
Mhm.
people watching live, more than 25,000 dollars, and they had to dump some of it off to a charity. So, but I don't know, with Nintendo, it seems like we're not getting any more tournaments after that, which I think
Mhm.
is an aftermath of what in-game TV did. The Nintendo tournaments were really good for our community. It brought in a ton of new teams. A lot of casuals brought them in to the competitive scene. So I feel like losing that pipeline is damning in some sense. But on the flip side, it's like it feels like Nintendo isn't interested in making this an esport, whereas
Mhm.
that's what all of us want. I guess would be my thought.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely fair. I think like and this is mainly because I've talked to so many tournament organizers as well, and many of these have connections with Nintendo. I've been to, I've played two national tournaments, Dutch national tournaments, which of course does not have the level of like a French or a US national tournament, but uh, the winners do get to go to winners of those tournaments, and then we got together with all the organizers and all the people, and we got to talk, and it was really nice. Um, but I think the main reason why Nintendo is sabotaging all these and does not want to make it an esport is because of Nintendo's central philosophy of making money, which is to create games that parents can buy safely for their children with 100% guarantee. And I think this philosophy kind of underlies almost all of their choices with regards to public relations and shutting down these tournaments, where if they have the option of making sure that a tournament is going to be safe and well run, know, they will shut down a tournament if there's even a possibility that it's not. And I think this is also the cause of why, for example, they really didn't want Slippy to be used in a tournament, but they really don't want people to be exploiting their games and why they're banning so many people are exploiting the games. And also why they don't want to make many of these games esports and to keep them small is because if there's a risk of it going wrong, which there is with Slippy, which there is with these exploits, and which there is with these esports, Nintendo will lose that status of being the game company that has the safe, the best, the nice games that always work. And I think that would damage their reputation so much that they really don't want to risk it. So, for example, Slippy was used as an emulator of playing Melee, I believe, but it was fan made, which means that Nintendo didn't know if it worked or not, or if they had changed something or not, or whether they, had some slurs in the game that could pop up or not. And if even one of those things had the possibility of happening, Nintendo would lose kind of their status as being safe, and parents would be like, "What the hell, Nintendo?" and I'll never buy a game again.
Right.
So I think the reason why they canceled these major tournaments is because they couldn't guarantee the safety and the quality that is expected of Nintendo. And even though we all know that that tournament was going to be running fine, because it was such a large scale tournament, if Slippy went wrong, then everyone would look at Nintendo. And similarly, Nintendo has a very large history of glitches and exploits where if you're playing a game, for example, Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask, there have been people who just glitch the game so much through arbitrary code execution that they can do anything with it. You can recode Super Mario Bros. 2 or Super Mario Bros. 3 to just play Tetris or play Doom just by injecting code into the game and doing glitchy things. And so cutting down on anyone who tries the slightest bit of a glitch is, in my opinion, especially in games with online play, such as Super Mario Maker, just the reason why they want to cut down on that so heavily because they don't want to risk anyone ejecting something in the game that they don't want, and then the parents finding out, and then there being an outrage. And finally, the esports thing is, I think, the same thing because they don't want parents to think that kids will become professional gamers if they play Nintendo games, because that's something that the Xbox gamers could do and the PlayStation gamers do, and that the professional Call of Duty players do and the PC gamers. But Nintendo has this aura of you can just give this to your kid and it'll be fine and they won't turn in some sort of professional gaming maniac and they can just play this fine. And I think that's just the reason why they're not allowing their major games to have esports. Because if something gets too much traction and too much prize money, I think their image of being a safe game and a safe company will just disappear. So for Splatoon, I think because it's such a childish looking game and such a game that isn't too big, I think that's why it's Splatoon is getting the preferential treatment of having these possibilities of these tournaments. Because Nintendo knows that Splatoon is not going to reach Call of Duty levels or Smash levels of entrance. So it's fine if they host tournaments because nobody really cares. But these Smash tournaments and these, major tournaments, they can't have that because it's just too risky, in my opinion. So that is, in my opinion, why Nintendo is shutting down these tournaments and making these weird personal relation uh, arguments and choices. Um, and I don't know if there's an easy way to fix that, but I think fan hosting tournaments that are very large is always going to be rough under Nintendo because of the fan element in it. And if there's a fan hosting the tournament, then there's a possibility of something going wrong. And if there's a possibility of something going wrong and something being large, then Nintendo won't have it and they will shut it down.
Yeah, I
I
guess
guess.
what the some of the frustration is that when Splatoon 2 was announced, it was that trailer of the guys playing in like the packed stadium arena like it was the finals of Wimbledon or something like that,
Hmm.
and like all like they presented it as like this is going to be an esport game is what it gets the sense. And you're talking about how they Nintendo, even though they kind of presented that, they're still more interested in keeping their like family friendly brand intact,
Hmm.
which I we understand that's what Nintendo has always been. That's kind of what separates them from Microsoft and Sony. as far as their consoles are concerned. But as far as like those of us that want Splatoon to become Call of Duty, or I mean, it can't be that because Splatoon is just on the Switch. Like Call of Duty, you could is multi-platform. You can play it on your PC, which most esports are. They're multi-platform, so it's not just like console exclusive. But for those of us that would love to see Splatoon tournaments that get sponsors to where like we get money, or like the cash prize is not something the TO just pulls out of their pocket. It's something like some organization uh
Hmm.
donates or supports or whatever. Like, do you think that is a possibility at some point in this competitive scene with or without Nintendo? Like, do you think it could become an esport?
Uh, I think that's a very good question because I feel like that's a lot of what the players also want, especially the top players. I doubt any Nintendo game will ever get sponsored on a large scale by Nintendo. But I am very interested in finding out whether a, a game from Nintendo can actually become an esport, even if it's fan made. Uh, but because it's so grassroots and because you always will have Nintendo kind of looking on from the side over a fence and be like, hey, what are you doing over there? Are you not intruding too much? I think it's hard for people to consistently do this because if you consistently do this and the tournaments become large scale, then people will have to be employed and they will want to be employed full time. And if Nintendo can at any point just say, hey, you can't host that tournament and not stream it, then it's going to be very hard for people to be professionally involved like they would be in maybe some other sports like League of Legends, where you know that next year it's still got to be fine if you're streaming it in a major tournament. Um, so I think at best, these small Nintendo games, small, of course, it's not small, but not, major scale Nintendo games. I think, unfortunately for now, until Nintendo has a change of heart on these matters, that they will still be fan hosted tournaments basically solely because I think professionally it does not have the consistency and the promise of becoming a major sport. Now, of course, you could get sponsors involved, and I think this would be the main way of creating some sort of professional scene where you would maybe get, some esports gear companies to support it, like, I don't know, Sennheiser or some of these energy drinks that have been floating around. Um, Personally, I always feel really bad when sponsors come to me and we would have to like approve their products and market them because I feel like I'm stealing money from people that that I don't want to steal it from. Uh, but I think this would be the way of creating large scale tournaments. But I don't think it'll ever be professionally made and coming from Nintendo.
I'm uh I'm running out of time. You said a lot of things there that I
Yeah,
want to follow
understandable.
up on. That's a great topic to have. But I am running out of time, so I got one more question for you. Um, Splatoon 3 is announced, and it's going to be. And we're looking way down the line here, and I've always said we don't even know. Like they could introduce tripping into Splatoon 3. Like it could be like a
Yeah.
complete casual game. Like it could be horrible for competitive, but if when it comes out, could you explain what the transition was from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2, and if that might be the same? Like, are we going to see a tournament day one, or is it going to be more, let's give people a month to figure out this game before we start making that transition?
From the Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2 transition, from what I recall, there were essentially week two tournaments. I think the first day it was rough because not everyone had access to the game at the same time, and you kind of had to climb at the start to even get into ranked mode. But the people who were good at Splatoon 2 when it came out were the exact same people that were good at Splatoon 1 when it finished or when Splatoon 2 came out. So I think a lot of the skills will just very easily translate from Splatoon 2 into Splatoon 3. Now, of course, there will be some differences. It may be, someone who's mediocre at some weapons now is just going to be like, this bow thing is the best thing that's ever happened in my life, and I'm going to main this and I'm going to run with it. And they're really like the only good bow player in the world or something. But from what I'm used to, I think there will be tournaments that will happen on week 2 that will have large entrant numbers because people also want to play tournaments. Because I recall that ranked in the first week of Splatoon 2 was essentially unplayable, not because of the skill level or anything, but it was quite literally unplayable because whenever you got to a new rank, you were only one of few people who was in that rank, and then you didn't have anyone to play against
Right.
because nobody else was in that rank. I think with Splatoon 2, maybe the scene is a bit larger and maybe there will be more people in a rank, but I think the tournaments that will happen in the first week are just going to be very interesting, and I think it'll definitely be a smooth transition as it was from 1 to 2.
Well, more people have like I guess with Splatoon 2 you had to get the Switch first and then the game because it came out at the same time. Now everyone has the Switch, so now you can just go get the game and
Oh yeah.
it's a lot easier to get set up there. But hey, thank you for coming on for this. This was a really good chat. I feel like this was one of the more interesting, insightful conversations we've had here on the podcast. So thank you for coming on, Emil, and I hope
No
you enjoy
problem
the
at
rest of
all.
your day. And good
Thank
luck
you. Same
running
to
the
you.
rest of Luti.
Thank you so much.
And that was Emil, the head TO of Luti, who had a lot of really good thoughts on the Nintendo situation that we found ourselves in here. I wanted to talk more about that Nintendo stuff, but we're just running out of time. But we'll reach out to some more people. We'll have some more conversations about that again when it's relevant. But yeah, that was fantastic. Hey, we're running out of time. Let's go raid somebody. If you would like to be a part of the podcast in any way, you want to DM me about anything, or any kind of nonsense like that, feel free to reach out to me at my socials below. Twitter at Mr_Popgun. Discord Popgun hashtag 5882, YouTube at 25Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25. Look for this episode to be up on Spotify at some point this week. I'll tweet out when that is and where you can find that. And if you're listening to this right now on Spotify, well, congratulations on going through the first entire episode up on Spotify. Let's go raid Fish. Wednesday, we are going to be recapping week 3. We're on week 3 now of the of Luti, so we're going to be recapping Luti week 3 on Wednesday. Make sure you come out for that. Get injected, get a mask, stay safe. Don't go to Texas. The heck are they doing out there? Jeez.